Welcome back to the channel. This is Wes. We had an interesting week in Marvel Comics coming out of San Diego Comic-Con. Lots of big announcements. We found out Jason Aaron's leaving Avengers. We found out there's going to be a new Fantastic Four writer. We also had Christopher Cantwell leaving Iron Man, but we had another big announcement. Saladin Ahmed is leaving Miles Morales Spider-Man after several years on the title. And here to talk with me about that is the Marvel aficionado himself. Doc, how you doing, Doc?
Good morning, sir. I am happy to be here and happy to say sayonara to Salad Man.
Writer Saladin Ahmed announced Miles Morales Spider-Man number 42 is his final issue. Ahmed and artist Javier Giron launched Miles Morales Spider-Man in 2018, continuing Miles' adventures after co-creator Brian Michael Bendis exited the previous volume. Ahmed has added to Miles' mythos with the addition of his Marvel 616 variant, Ultimatum, and a new love interest in Starling, and his very own clone saga that introduced his evil clone Salim and heroic clone Shift. Saladin Ahmed was essentially given the golden goose here, Doc. This is one of the biggest opportunities. You had Miles Morales coming out of Into the Spider-Verse. We had this huge awareness of the character. You had him big in movies and stuff, and it feels like he missed a major league opportunity to kind of lift himself and Miles Morales into the stratosphere as far as comic books and make him a prime-time A-list character.
Yeah, I mean, he completely and utterly dropped the ball. Like, he got handed quite possibly the best opportunity anyone has been handed in comics in the last few decades. He had a character that had name recognition, had name cachet, had cultural cachet coming off of a huge movie that was mostly a blank slate. He could have done anything with this character and ran with it, made him unique, interesting, had, given him this great supporting cast. And what did he do? He gave him rehashes of bad Peter Parker stories from the 90s and forgettable supporting cast.
It's an interesting point you have there, Doc. When he took over the character of Miles Morales in 2018, it's been 4 years. Essentially every single issue Marvel Comics had with Miles Morales and getting over with audiences is still existing, if not made even worse. He's still kind of perceived as second-rate Spider-Man. He doesn't have his very own identity. He doesn't really have his own rogues gallery. Saladin Ahmed had 4 years to put a stamp on the character after Brian Michael Bendis did something really cool in Ultimate Spider-Man, brought him into the 616 and didn't know what to do with him to get him over. And he did exactly the same thing. He just kind of did the status quo. He didn't take advantage of the notoriety and the momentum that the character had. And 4 years later, it's the same exact character with the same exact problems.
Not only is it the same exact character with the same exact problems, it's now an even blander version with lower sales. He could have brought in and tried to translate some of those moviegoers, make that their gateway comic book into comics.
He also had the video game, too. That Miles Morales video game was exceptionally popular.
He had literally every chip stacked in his favor, and he decided that, I'm not playing poker, I'm playing fucking Jenga. If anything, I would say that Miles is in actually a worse spot now than he was at the time that Into the Spider-Verse came out, at the time that the Spider-Man video game came out, and at the time that Salad Man took over this book, because even the limited supporting cast that was there that was interesting before, I don't see them even fucking showing up in this comic anymore. Saladin Ahmed is not creative enough to do something unique with Miles. He wasn't unique enough to put his own stamp on it. He wasn't talented enough to make Miles stand out. And at that point, all you needed for the character, the version of the character that people did give a shit about, Peter, to just not suck. There was an opportunity there for Marvel, for Saladin Ahmed, for the editorial, for Sony, for Disney, for everybody to elevate Miles in a way that I don't think you would have seen, at least at Marvel Comics. You've never seen a character elevated, that's kind of the knockoff character, that's the other version of it. The closest thing that I could explain, that I could compare it to, would have been Wally West taking over for Barry Allen. they could have had their own moment like that in Marvel, which is what they were aiming for. That's the whole point of what they were going for. They wanted to elevate Miles to that same level. And they had the opportunity because Peter, everybody had kind of gotten sick of it, mostly because of Dan Slott and his nonsense. And Miles to still be sitting there, and now he is going to be forever known as kind of the also ran. He's the nobody.
Yeah, Marvel kind of put themselves in their own corner. They're the ones that hired Saladin Ahmed, who has never had a successful comic book run. Every character that he's taken over, the sales have dropped, and obviously it happened here. But he wants you to know that he did not get his series canceled. He said, to be clear, this is an intended ending, not a cancellation. Readers have been supporting the book wonderfully, and I've been given all the space I need to tell stories I wanted to tell. This is a long-planned exit with a symbolically significant issue number 42, having been a target departure for some time now. That oversized special issue is out in September with an all-star roster of Miles artists and this phenomenal cover by the great Torrin Clark.
For me to buy that, he would have to explain what the significance of 42 to Miles Morales is, because I don't fucking see it. You're that close. Why not hit 50? 50 is, when you look at a lot of the titles that have come out over the last few years, the ones that have been ongoing the longest, they all aimed for 50 as their target completion.
So that's a semi-milestone. You can charge $8 for that comic book.
The Old Man Logan series finished at issue 50. The Spider-Man Deadpool series finished at issue 50. I think even Squirrel Girl and Miss Marvel finished at issue 50. It's a significant milestone. You could charge as a double-sized 42. You know what? Why wasn't it 37? It's not like that even works out to an even number of months that they were there. 3.5 years.
I have an idea of why this might be happening, and you probably thought about this as well. We did just have a big controversy regarding Miles Morales and Marvel Comics with the What If Miles Morales was Thor issue. There was a lot of racial stereotyping in there. Asgard became Brooklyn, and all the characters within Asgard started rapping and all this kind of stuff going on within there. I have a feeling that this departure wasn't planned all along and is a direct result of the criticism and blowback, quite frankly, that Marvel Comics received for that What If Miles Morales issue. And a lot of people realizing that no Black creator had ever worked with Miles Morales Spider-Man.
Distinctly possible, especially these days with how wildly overly sensitive Marvel editorial is. Yeah, it wouldn't shock me at all if they're like, "Oh, we got to get rid of you. We need to cancel this book. We need to figure out a new plan of attack for how we're going to do Spider-Man, or at least Miles Morales Spider-Man." And well, you ain't in the cards, dude. We need to do an entire reset on Miles Morales, and that includes saying goodbye to you, jabroni.
So what do you think Saladin Ahmed does from here? He's not the worst writer in the world. When you look at what's going on with X-Men and a lot of stuff going on at DC, there are far worse comic book writers at Marvel or DC right now, but he's not particularly good either. He's never had a memorable run on a character, but he hasn't ever really destroyed a character really either. Do you think he kind of sits around at Marvel Comics and keeps floating around, going from title to title, not making his mark as far as his comic book legacy? Or do you think he kind of tries to maybe move over to Substack, maybe tries to do some creator-owned work?
Well, I don't think he's going to move to Substack. Honestly, I think the Substack thing is already basically faded to nothingness.
The year one grants are over. They're no longer just paying people to be on their platform.
Yeah. And he definitely doesn't have, I don't even think he's delusional enough to think that he has a following that would support him there. He markets to broke communists, and well, that's not going to really help him when it's a platform based entirely upon getting people to pay money for you. Creator owned, he may be delusional enough to think that he can do a creator owned and somebody will actually buy it.
I'm sure Mad Cave or Valiant Comics or somebody would pay him decent money to go in and write some character that
Yeah, that's where I'm thinking. I think he ends up on like, fucking Joe Blow Press, some no-name title at some no-name publisher. Maybe he gets brought in. Bendis doesn't have the cachet to get him over to DC anymore. So I think he does do a little bit of floating around at Marvel. I think he does a handful of one shots here, little Z-list miniseries there.
Yeah, I mean, he's failed on two what were supposed to be important ongoing series, Miss Marvel and Miles Morales Spider-Man. It's probably time for the 12-issue miniseries that gets shut down at 5 issues.
Yeah, I mean, he also failed at Exiles. That was an important book for them. Yeah, I think he's gonna graduate his way to one shot and Z-list miniseries, because that's the career trajectory of successful writers at Marvel. Ongoing as your first title, to covert miniseries, to dedicated miniseries, to one shot, to no longer getting work, because that proves that you've conquered comics. And so you don't need to work anymore. He's already on that path. I don't know. You know what? DC's probably going to pick him up for something, because
DC's picking up all the worst writers Marvel comics have.
Yeah, every one of Marvel's.
Maybe writing Batman.
I know. At this point, if CB Cebulski has a sandwich, Jim Lee goes, "Can I have the crust?"
Right. What the hell was Superman come?
Yeah, and we'll give him Batman. No, so you're gonna see him end up at DC, but I think he's gonna end up pretty much settling into some fucking jabroni book at some no-name company. Not even Boom. I think you're gonna see maybe Valiant, maybe
IDW.
Yeah, that's actually probably more likely, because they keep giving every reject the title. So yeah, look, his career's dead. It's just in hospice care now.
Miles Morales has so much potential as a character. He just needs the right creator and Marvel Comics to believe in the character, that he can be something special. We've seen it on the big screen. We've seen it in video games and whatnot. It just hasn't translated, shockingly, to comic books where he was created. I had this conversation with Perch about 1.5 years ago, talking about how Marvel Comics just don't believe in the character, and that's why they can't get him right. It's still a problem. It's been a problem for years now.